I built my life from nothing, while my brother Jason received everything from our parents. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone he was showered with gifts and praise, while I worked for scraps of attention. Now I have a successful career and financial stability without any help from them. Then, last week, after years of minimal contact, Jason called out of the blue with an unbelievable demand about our parents' retirement. The audacity nearly took my breath away. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of real-life stories. The inequality between Jason and me started early. I remember our childhood home in suburban Chicago, a modest 2-story house with a small backyard, where Dad would throw the football with Jason while I watched from my bedroom window. My 5th birthday party consisted of a small cake Mom picked up from the grocery store and a single gift, a used toy truck that had belonged to our cousin. 2 weeks later, Jason turned 7 and received a lavish party with professional decorations, 20 invited friends, and so many presents he needed help carrying them to his room. I learned young that there were different rules for us. Christmas mornings painted the clearest picture of my place in the family. Jason would wake up to piles of wrapped boxes containing the latest video games, sports equipment, and whatever else topped his wish list that year. My gifts were typically practical items like socks or school supplies, occasionally supplemented with whatever toy Jason had grown tired of months earlier. I pretended not to mind, but even at 8 years old, I understood what it meant. The pattern continued through elementary school. When I was 10, I spent weeks perfecting a solar system model for the science fair, carefully painting each planet and calculating the proper distances between them. The night before it was due, Jason accidentally knocked it off the table while roughhousing with his friends. When I got upset, my parents lectured me about making Jason feel bad. I stayed up all night remaking the project with cardboard and crayons, earning a C- while fighting tears. My parents never missed a single one of Jason's sports games. They cheered from the stands as he played football, basketball, and baseball depending on the season. But when I won the spelling bee in 6th grade, neither of them attended. Dad had to work, and Mom needed to drive Jason to practice. I accepted my certificate with a forced smile while scanning the audience for faces that never appeared. By middle school, I recognized the futility of seeking their approval. Jason joined expensive travel sports teams that required frequent weekend trips. My parents happily funded his equipment and hotel stays. When I expressed interest in joining the robotics club, my dad slid $20 across the table and told me to figure out the rest myself. At 13, I started mowing lawns and shoveling snow to pay for my own activities. High school only widened the gap. Jason received professional music lessons when he showed passing interest in guitar. I maintained straight A's and worked part-time at the local grocery store to save for college. My parents had created a substantial college fund for Jason from his birth, but informed me I should apply for scholarships since I was the academic one. When I asked about financial help, my mother suggested I consider community college instead. The summer before my junior year, our family vacation to Wisconsin Dells was abruptly canceled. Jason had decided he wanted a new gaming computer, and somehow that took priority over our annual trip. I spent that week working extra shifts while my parents took Jason shopping for computer parts. They never apologized or acknowledged the change in plans. My high school graduation ceremony offered another stark reminder of my position. While other students had cheering sections with proud parents holding signs and flowers, my family arrived late, sat through the ceremony in silence, and left immediately after to get Jason to his baseball game on time. No photos, no celebration dinner, just a quick congratulations before they rushed off. That night I decided my future would be different. At 18, I packed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags and moved out. There were no tearful goodbyes or offers of support. I shared a cramped apartment with 3 roommates while working as a barista in the mornings and at a warehouse in the evenings. Between shifts, I attended community college classes, determined to transfer to a 4-year university. Every dollar I earned went toward rent, food, or tuition. The few times I returned home for holidays, I felt like a guest rather than family. Conversations revolved around Jason and his accomplishments, with barely a question about my life. By 19, I had saved enough to transfer to State University on a partial scholarship. I lived in the cheapest apartment building near campus and survived mainly on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. My parents called occasionally, but our conversations felt like formal interviews rather than family check-ins. They always steered the discussion toward Jason, who had been accepted to an expensive private university they were paying for in full. When I was 21, I landed a coveted internship at a growing technology company. The pay was minimal, but the experience proved invaluable. My supervisor recognized my work ethic and offered me guidance that my father never had. I spent every free hour learning additional skills, determined to convert the internship into a full-time position. 3 months later, they hired me as a junior analyst with benefits and a salary that allowed me to quit my weekend job. My first professional promotion came at 23. I called my parents to share the news, but they seemed distracted. Later, I discovered they were dealing with Jason dropping out of college during his senior year despite them paying over $100,000 for his education. Instead of finding employment, Jason moved back home, and my parents covered all his expenses while he figured out what he wanted to do next. That same year, I purchased my first car without cosigners or financial help. It was nothing fancy, a used sedan with decent gas mileage, but it represented freedom I had earned entirely on my own. I drove it to my new apartment in a neighboring city when I accepted a better position at a larger company. The distance from my childhood home felt both physical and symbolic. At 24, I received a disturbing call from my aunt. My parents had refinanced their house to fund Jason's first business venture, a sports memorabilia shop that closed within 6 months due to mismanagement. They had leveraged their financial security on Jason's potential, while never offering me even a small loan for education. The inequality stung, but I had grown accustomed to the pain. When I turned 25, I developed severe abdominal pain and was rushed into emergency surgery for appendicitis. I spent 3 days in the hospital, without a single family visitor. My coworkers brought flowers and took turns checking on me while my parents texted that they were too busy helping Jason plan his second business attempt to make the 2-hour drive. Their absence clarified what I had long suspected: I was truly on my own. Yet being on my own had unexpected benefits. Without family distractions or drama, I focused entirely on building my career. At 26, I met Richard, a senior director who saw potential in me that my parents never acknowledged. He became the mentor I had always needed, offering honest feedback and opportunities to prove myself. Under his guidance, I developed leadership skills that accelerated my professional trajectory. By 28, I had been promoted to department manager, with a team of 7 people reporting to me. My salary had doubled, allowing me to start investing seriously in retirement accounts and save for a down payment on a modest house. I closed on my first home just before my 29th birthday, a moment of pride I celebrated with the friends who had become my chosen family. That same year, I met Taylor, whose warmth and understanding helped heal wounds I had carried since childhood. Our relationship developed, naturally built on mutual respect and shared values. Taylor encouraged me to address my family issues through therapy rather than suppression, a suggestion that initially made me uncomfortable but ultimately proved transformative. Meanwhile, my limited contact with my parents revealed disturbing patterns. They had purchased Jason a luxury car as a gift to cheer him up after his second business failed. They helped him with the down payment on a house he later lost to foreclosure due to missed mortgage payments. Most alarmingly, they had withdrawn from their retirement accounts, incurring substantial penalties to fund Jason's third business idea, a fitness studio that closed after 8 months. The extent of their financial entanglement with Jason became clear when they missed my industry award ceremony, an event I had invited them to months in advance. My mother called the morning of the ceremony to explain that they needed to help Jason deal with debt collectors that day. I accepted my award, surrounded by colleagues and friends who genuinely celebrated my achievement, finally understanding that blood relation did not equal support or love. The call that changed everything came on an ordinary Tuesday. I was reviewing quarterly projections in my office when my phone displayed Jason's name, a rare occurrence that immediately put me on alert. I answered cautiously, wondering what crisis had prompted this unexpected contact. Jason's voice sounded surprisingly warm and friendly, as though we regularly spoke instead of exchanging brief obligatory birthday texts. He asked about my job. My house even mentioned Taylor by name, though they had never met. The uncharacteristic interest in my life should have been my first warning sign, but part of me still craved family connection, despite years of disappointment. After 15 minutes of superficial conversation, Jason cleared his throat, signaling a shift to his actual purpose. Our parents, he explained, were facing financial difficulties. Their retirement savings had been depleted through a series of investments and loans, most of which I knew had gone to him. At 65, they could no longer afford the retirement community they had planned to move into next year. What came next stunned me into silence. Jason suggested that since I was doing so well financially, I should step up to support our parents in their retirement. He had calculated that $3,000 monthly would cover their basic expenses, plus additional amounts for medical costs not covered by insurance. When I remained silent, he continued by suggesting I could also help them with a down payment on a smaller condo in a retirement community. The most audacious part of his proposal was the casual way he presented it, as though this request was reasonable after years of unequal treatment. He threw in guilt tactics about family responsibility and the sacrifices our parents had made, conveniently ignoring that those sacrifices had primarily benefited him. His final comment, "After all they have done for us," pushed me from shock to anger. I told Jason I needed time to consider the situation, a response that clearly disappointed him. After ending the call, I spent the evening researching my parents' financial position rather than taking his word for it. Through public records and information from my aunt, I discovered they had sold the family home 6 months earlier, presumably generating substantial equity that should have funded their retirement. Where had that money gone? Further investigation revealed that Jason had recently purchased a new luxury SUV, despite claiming financial hardship. Social media photos showed him taking expensive vacations, while apparently unable to contribute to our parents' support. The pattern of financial mismanagement extended beyond my brother to my parents themselves, who had enabled his behavior for decades while neglecting their own financial security. Armed with this information, I requested a meeting with Jason and our parents at a local restaurant. I arrived prepared with financial documents and a list of alternative solutions that would not involve me becoming their primary support system. As we ordered drinks, I maintained a calm, analytical approach, treating this as a business negotiation rather than an emotional family matter. I presented my findings about their home sale, questioned the disappearance of those funds, and suggested several options they had not considered, including Jason selling luxury assets to support them. My brother's face flushed with anger as I outlined how he could contribute by downsizing his lifestyle. Before I could finish my presentation, he slammed his hand on the table, causing nearby diners to stare. My mother immediately placed her hand on Jason's arm, comforting him while shooting me a disapproving look. My father leaned forward and stated flatly that after raising me for 18 years, they were entitled to my financial support. When I pointed out that they had paid for Jason's education, housing, and multiple business failures, while I had received nothing, my mother accused me of keeping score in a family that should be based on unconditional love. The conversation devolved quickly. Jason called me selfish and ungrateful. My father suggested my success had made me arrogant and disconnected from family values. My mother cried about raising an unfeeling son who would abandon his elderly parents. None of them acknowledged the decades of preferential treatment that had created our current dynamic. The final blow came when my father issued an ultimatum: either help them financially or be considered no longer part of the family. The threat might have devastated me years earlier, but in that moment it clarified everything. They were not asking for help. They were demanding payment for conditional love they had never actually provided. The realization was both painful and freeing. I drove home from that disastrous meeting in complete silence, processing the interaction. Traffic lights changed, other cars moved around me, but I remained absorbed in thought. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had reached clarity about what needed to happen next. The toxic family dynamic would never change. Jason would always be prioritized. My parents would continue enabling him, and I would be expected to clean up their financial messes while receiving blame rather than gratitude. That evening, I called my parents and calmly explained my decision. I would not be funding their retirement or participating in a relationship where I was valued only for financial contribution. I outlined the boundary clearly. If they wanted any relationship with me, it would need to be built on mutual respect rather than monetary expectations. My mother began crying, and my father took the phone to tell me I would regret my selfishness. I ended the call and immediately blocked their numbers. The next day, I blocked all family members on social media and set up email filters to prevent messages from reaching my inbox. I informed my assistant to screen calls from unknown numbers and provided names of family members who should not be put through. The decisive action was necessary to enforce the boundary I had finally established after 32 years of accepting less than I deserved. The months following my decision brought unexpected emotional challenges. Despite knowing I had made the right choice, waves of guilt occasionally washed over me, usually late at night, when my defenses were lowest. Cultural expectations about family obligations weighed heavily, making me question whether I was the villain in this story. During those moments, Taylor's steadfast support became my anchor, reminding me of the years of neglect that had preceded this breaking point. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma, unpacking decades of ingrained beliefs about my worth and relationships. We explored how being the unfavored child had shaped my perfectionist tendencies and workaholic habits. Each session peeled back layers of hurt I had suppressed in order to function, revealing the extent of damage caused by consistent emotional neglect. Extended family members became unwitting players in the drama. My aunt called to tell me my parents were devastated by my decision. Cousins sent messages urging reconciliation for the sake of family harmony. Even my grandmother, who had always treated Jason and me equally, suggested I reconsider my position. Each contact tested my resolve, but I maintained the boundaries I had established, explaining my reasoning when appropriate and disengaging when conversations became manipulative. Through these challenging conversations, I discovered strength I never knew I possessed. The people pleaser who had accepted scraps of affection was gone, replaced by someone who understood his value and refused to accept mistreatment. This transformation extended beyond family relationships, affecting how I advocated for myself professionally and what I expected from all relationships in my life. 6 months after cutting contact, the initial emotional turbulence began to settle. I no longer checked my blocked call list to see if they had tried to reach me. The guilt that had plagued me subsided as I recognized that parents who truly loved their child would not issue ultimatums based on financial support. The anger that had fueled my initial decision transformed into acceptance that some family systems cannot be fixed, only left behind. My focus shifted entirely to building the life I wanted. I devoted energy to my career, earning another promotion that expanded my responsibilities and compensation. Taylor and I moved in together, blending our lives in ways that demonstrated healthy partnership. We established new holiday traditions with friends, creating celebrations filled with genuine warmth instead of tension and disappointment. The grief of family estrangement emerged in unexpected moments: a birthday without even a perfunctory call, Thanksgiving without awkward family dinner, Christmas without pretending. The inequality of gifts did not hurt. I allowed myself to feel this grief rather than denying it, understanding that mourning the family I wished I had was part of accepting the reality of the family I actually had. A year after our final confrontation, I heard through a mutual connection that my parents had moved in with Jason after being unable to qualify for a mortgage on a retirement property. The news confirmed I had made the right decision, as they continued the pattern of enmeshment with my brother while expecting others to solve the problems this created. Their situation was unfortunate but resulted directly from choices they had made repeatedly over decades. By the 2-year mark, my life had transformed completely. I had been promoted to an executive position that once seemed unattainable, managing a department crucial to the company's success. Taylor and I got engaged during a weekend trip to the mountains, a joyful commitment based on equal partnership and mutual support. We purchased our dream home in a neighborhood with excellent schools, planning for a future family that would never know the pain of favoritism. Most importantly, I had created financial security on my terms, without manipulation or guilt. My investment accounts grew steadily, ensuring I would never face the retirement insecurity my parents experienced. I had broken the cycle of financial irresponsibility that had defined my family of origin, creating instead a foundation of stability and thoughtful planning. Through mutual friends, I occasionally heard updates about my parents and Jason. They continued to struggle financially, with Jason launching and abandoning various business ideas, while my parents depleted what little remained of their resources. These updates no longer triggered guilt or responsibility, just a distant sadness for people unwilling to change patterns that harmed them. The journey from neglected child to self-sufficient adult taught me lessons I would never have chosen but now deeply value. I learned that obligation and respect are entirely different concepts. Family relationships, like all connections, should be based on mutual care and consideration rather than exploitation. People who demand sacrifice without reciprocity do not deserve unlimited access to your resources or energy. I discovered the profound importance of boundaries in all areas of life. Setting and maintaining limits is not selfish, but essential for well-being. Those who react with anger to reasonable boundaries are revealing their intention to cross them. True love, whether familial, romantic, or platonic, respects the borders of others rather than trampling them for personal gain. Perhaps, most significantly, I found freedom from toxic expectations that had constrained me since childhood. The realization that I did not need to earn love through achievement or financial support liberated me from constant striving to prove my worth. I began making choices based on my own values, rather than seeking approval that would never genuinely arrive. The family I have built is founded on respect rather than DNA. Tailor close friends, mentors, and colleagues who celebrate my successes and support me through challenges have shown me what family should actually provide. These relationships, chosen and nurtured carefully, bring joy without the undercurrent of obligation and score, keeping that characterized my biological family. Looking back on my journey from the child, watching from the window as my brother received attention, I crave to the confident adult who established necessary boundaries. I feel neither bitterness nor regret. Every step of that path, even the painful ones, led me to the peace I now experience. The neglect I endured taught me how to provide genuine support to others. The inequality I witnessed showed me the importance of fairness in all relationships. I share this story not to vilify my family, but to reach those who might recognize themselves in my experience. If you have always been the one giving while others take, know that you deserve reciprocity. If you have been the unfavored child, understand that the problem lies with those who failed to love you appropriately, not with your worthiness to be loved. What would your life look like if you prioritized your own well-being the way others prioritize theirs? Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you in any way, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision about family relationships? What boundaries have you found necessary for your own well-being? Hit the like button if you appreciated this perspective. Subscribe to hear more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to know they are not alone in these challenges. Remember that sometimes the family we create brings more healing than the one we were born into.